This is From the Mezzanine, a film podcast. We are Matt and Chuck, and this is episode number 42. It's the second week of August 2022, and today we've got a very special episode. We're going to be talking about our favorite films of all time, what that means to us, and how our favorites have changed over the years. And as always, we're talking about what we watched, streamed, and played this week. And finally, we'll be rounding out the show with a trio of smaller news stories to get the juices flowing. Like usual, our opinions are uncensored and unsponsored. Chuck, I want to start by asking you, why do you think it's important that we talk about our favorite films of all time?
Well, it's kind of important for, I guess, selfishly for our own credibility, so that people have some bearings as to what our tastes and I guess what are we into? Like, what's the art that we value? That's important questions if you're going to take someone's opinion seriously. This kind of ties into what's going to be the parting question today, I believe. But sometimes, credibility is lost if if I hear that someone's favorite movie is something like, oh, I like Mean Girls, best movie of all time. It's like Tina Fey's just the greatest. My eyes glaze over. I'm just like, I can't believe that is what you would say is the best film ever. My film pretentious, boner just shoots up, and I'm just like, you're full of shit. There's no way that could be your favorite movie. Your opinion's wrong. That's kind of where, from a certain point of view, either you could just let live, but after a while, it's like, okay, now I know not to listen to your recommendations. Not a good idea. In much the same way that if someone was like, oh, bar none, Birth of a Nation, best movie ever made, then it's just like, let's steer out of that one, Yeah. I guess, what is that? You kind of agree? I think that was the intent behind this, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to get our favorites on the record, especially as we kind of continue doing this podcast for posterity reasons. Hopefully it's something that, knock on wood, we can revisit
absolutely
down the line. If the podcast is still going and, a couple years, 5 years, it's something we can revisit and see how our picks have changed.
Yeah.
And just to kind of give people a compass for what we look for in films,
because we are going to kind of be talking about some movies that may have been in our top 5 at some point that now aren't. These things can change. It's not healthy to be actually metaphorically carving yourself out of stone. Be like clay, be moldable, reshape yourself. This is actually a mental wellness podcast, believe it or not, and this is how you do that. You change your opinions on art after a while. But you had a question for us at the close of last show, which was
kind of related to what we were talking about last week a little bit, and it was just kind of as far as blonde and stuff goes. What is your most indelible memory related to leaks and films? Or movies?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'll take this one away because this is a story I've probably told you before, but it's something that it would be good to get out there because in year 2007, I was the first person to put the Dark Knight trailer on the internet.
It's amazing.
And, it was really, really fun, and it was hilarious. And I was let's see, that would have been when I was a junior in high school.
Jesus.
So I was not aware of the consequences involved with that. And so basically the short version of the story goes, I was working at a theater at the time, and we would have these employee screenings of movies on Thursday nights. This was before, they did midnight screenings of everything. Only the big stuff got midnight screenings. And there was a rumor going around that the Dark Knight trailer was going to be attached to film prints of the Will Smith movie I Am Legend. And I was following that rumor, and this is also when I was frequenting the IMDb message boards. And So I went on there and I told all the people on there, like, hey, I'm gonna go to this movie tonight and I'm gonna try and catch the Dark Knight trailer on my camcorder. This was before the
Holy
time of
shit!
yeah. This is before camera. I mean, we had cameras on cell phones, but it was just
They
like
were dog
very
shit.
basic.
You
Yeah,
were
very,
you were
very
lucky
basic.
if you had over like 240p,
Yeah.
like your resolution. So I just want to ask you, was this a Sony Handycam?
It was I think it was a Canon. Is what I
Canon.
had. A
Respect.
Canon
Respect.
mini DV tapes, and so I told everybody like, hey, I'm gonna do this. So wait until tonight, and I'm gonna upload it to YouTube. And it was really funny to watch kind of like the people on there be like, this guy's full of shit. Like, there's no way that he's doing this. And so, anyways, I go to the movie. Of course, it is on there. The Dark Knight trailer is on there, the famous Dark Knight trailer. And I videoed it and I took it home. I didn't stay for the movie. I just left after that and brought it home and uploaded it to YouTube under a YouTube channel called Snow King Snowblowers, because back in those days you could get away with like putting stuff under like a false channel
Like a
for a little
sock
while.
puppet. Yeah.
Yeah, basically like a fake channel. It was harder to find you, basically, to find your videos unless you had like the direct link. And so yeah, I did that, put it under Snow King Snowblowers, and shared the link with the people on the IMDb message board. And then like by that morning, like I went to bed and then I woke up the next day for school, because this was a Thursday night into a Friday morning, and I woke up for school, and the next morning I had like 300,000 views. And it
And
was
how
funny
and
because
God knows how many mirrors of your video too.
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And it was funny because I went to school and I was so like impressed with myself that I went into the computer lab and like printed off like printouts of like my view count on YouTube and like shared them with all my friends and was like, "Hey, look at this. I'm like number 4 on like the biggest videos of the month or whatever." And then essentially what happened was, just to kind of cut this story short, I got a cease and desist from Warner Brothers and they deleted my channel, and that's how that went.
Rest in peace, Snow King Snowblowers on
Yeah,
YouTube. Oh my God! So do these IMDb forum pages still exist? Can we dig this up?
I don't know. It might be on like the what's it called? What is that internet like Wayback
The
Machine?
Wayback Machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it might be on there, but no. I mean, the IMDb message boards got nuked, and you can't access them anymore in any way, because once Amazon bought IMDb, they're like, fuck this. We don't want all this toxicity, so they just
We got server space to sell, and we're just gonna use these computers. Thanks. No, that's amazing. I've never actually like heard it in this much detail, and like the
Yeah.
gravity of it really hitting me. It really makes, everything that I was possibly going to discuss just feel like, quaint in comparison. I think I've told this story before, but when I was living with Eric Broadshow in Thompson Hall, in a neighboring suite was a dude named Jamal Hadari. I lived with him for a little bit too. Good guy. His dad owns convenience stores in northern Minneapolis in the ghetto.
Okay.
And so he gets access to a lot of good shit. Obviously, all the contraband flows through this man. And it was 2009, I believe, right around the time, like the few weeks before that Wolverine Origins, X-Men Wolverine Origins was coming out.
Oh yeah. I know
And
this very well.
yeah, I think I have mentioned this on the podcast before, but it was like the reason why it's I'm never gonna forget it, because it was the first time that I literally went from like reading about something on Ain't It Cool News to actually like having it in my hands. You know what I mean? Because like Broadshow and I were like talking about it. We're like, God damn, it's fucking crazy, man. The whole assembly cut leaks online. That's nuts. Yeah, like if only we were all brave enough to like torrent it or something so we could see it, But then instead, Jamal just walks in. He's like, "Hey, look what my dad gave me." He just throws us this burned DVD, And we all like huddled around Jake Decker's tiny little TV underneath his loft bed, and we watched the assembly cut, and we just laughed. We laughed, and then after it was over, there was like this glimmer of hope of, well, it's probably going to be better at like watching the final movie. And it was not. That assembly cut is still, to me, the definitive version of that movie, just because the animatics were still in there. They didn't have the final special effects in it. So, like, some of the fight sequences were the wires were still visible, for crying out loud, in like half of that cut. It was just hilarious.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. That was a very big news story around that time, and I've seen GIFs of it. I've never seen the actual full movie without all the effects, but I've seen GIFs of, especially like the scene when they're on top of that like nuclear reactor, and
So
that
bad.
fight is so bad.
It's
But
so bad.
yeah, that's a good one. That's probably one of the. It's fun that you were a part of that or got to be a part of that at the time, because that was one of the more famous examples of what we're talking about.
Yeah, because that kind of thing to that level, it doesn't really happen like that anymore, does it? You know,
No,
like
not at all.
everything's locked down. Like, I guess the most recent exception is like over 10 years old now, and that was when the Sony hack happened, and like so
Yeah.
like and so many, like, did anything actually get leaked completely by that whole affair, or was it just like scripts and like
Yeah,
emails?
scripts and emails and just like a lot of inside baseball stuff, but it was still really fascinating. But the thing that I think of as far as recent examples of this go is the leak of the game Last of Us 2. I don't know if you followed that at all, but that was
That's
that
right.
was huge
Yeah.
because that game was they tried so hard to keep that under wraps, and there was a lot of controversy around that game, and the entire thing leaked, including like massive story spoilers, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty insane.
I had forgotten about that. Yeah, because
Mhm.
some people even went even further into the code, and they found stuff that wasn't even supposed to be in the final game,
Mhm.
like the like nudity, because by law or something like that, you're not like the actors, like, you know, just for like their sensibilities, like the game is not supposed to actually show more than what they've agreed to. So
Yeah.
like an animator can't just throw tits on somebody that's out of frame. There's just no tits to be seen, basically.
Mhm.
And here it came to find out, oh no, all of that was still in the game, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a good question, and thanks for sharing that memory, Matt. That was a part of history. Because like, everyone else took your torch and ran with it. You know, like, you built it. They are standing on your shoulders, and now the world knows your story. It's past the statute of limitations. Warner Brothers Discovery. You can't come after this man. What you should do is just listen to all of his good ideas for how to run your business. Moving on to news. We have a couple brief little news segments here. Quickly, you know, like, I don't know how much there really is to add to this story, but Disney Plus finally reaches a big milestone, 221 million subscribers, and they finally have more than Netflix. What does this mean for the streaming wars, especially considering the like chaos happening at Netflix and HBO Max?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I guess I think this was probably inevitable. The question is when it was going to happen. And the kind of interesting thing though about this is they're fudging the numbers a little bit, because this number actually includes ESPN Plus and Hulu in the equation.
Oh, they are
It's not Disney.
they're cheating.
Yeah, they're definitely cheating, and because they basically, I mean, in the headline for every news story about this story, it says Disney Plus, but then you read the actual article and it says Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus combined beat Netflix.
Well,
So
I am a jabroni, and I just read the headline, so I'm the fool here. Yeah,
but no, it's understandable, because I mean, it's still pretty impressive, and I think that eventually Disney Plus will get to the point where they do beat Netflix by themselves, and I think it's going to come sooner rather than later, because I was looking at it earlier, and you know, Netflix for the rest of this year, I think they're going to keep hemorrhaging members, because I was looking at their slate for the rest of the year, and it's like they don't have much. I mean, no Witcher, no Stranger Things, no Ozark, no 13 Reasons Why, no Bridgerton, no Squid Game. And those are their biggest shows. And the only notable things they have coming out for the rest of the year are the Witcher spin-off, that 90s show, which is like the spin-off of that 70s show or the continuation of that 70s show, and like the Sonic animated show, the Sonic the Hedgehog animated show. And so it's like I think this is probably going to happen by the end of the year where Disney Plus actually beats Netflix, but I guess we'll see.
I want to cut that cord so bad. Angie won't let me. She just won't fucking let me, man. But I really want to. And yeah, Great British Baking Show is the most valuable property they have. I don't care what anyone says. It keeps so many casual subs going. And I would be gone if not for that stupid show and all of its delicious food porn. But yeah, it is interesting. We will just have to see how that all shakes out. A little bit of sad news, just to get this little bit of news segment out of the way here. Lars Von Trier, the iconoclastic, infamous auteur, has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he was in the middle of production on the final season of his TV series Kingdom, that hospital horror show, and apparently he is going to finish production on it, and he will just have a lot of support to essentially see the whole thing through. Just a very sad thing to hear, because he was kind of making a comeback after his exile for his comments at the Melancholia press conference at the Cannes Film Festival. And now this probably is the end of Lars Von Trier's career.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that we got this in here because, I mean, he's one of those really influential filmmakers for me personally, and I really hope that they haven't really specified yet as how like far along this is, and I hope that it's like still in the early stages, because if it is, I would hope that we have another couple of movies out of this guy, because Parkinson's with modern medicine is a disease that can be survived long term. I mean, it will probably eventually kill you, but I hope that we have another 10, 15 years with this guy. And he puts out something else, because I don't know, I wouldn't really like it if this Kingdom revival is his last thing that he ever does.
I remember watching the TNT adaptation of it, like the Americanized version that they did. But like I've never actually seen his Kingdom. But yeah, like I want to see more actual movies out of him, as opposed to even this kind of feels like David Lynch doing Twin Peaks. Even though Twin Peaks: The Return is fucking awesome, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I would much rather see this guy back behind the wheel of an emotional, a controversial film, because that's what I think of when I think of this guy. He doesn't have a single easy movie. You know what I mean? Like a lot of filmmakers will give, okay, this one's for the families, every once in a while.
Yeah.
No, it's like he's like Michael Haneke too. They're both like,
same.
They both just embody. Like, it's not like the French get a lot of credit for like having the new French extremity, but people like Lars Von Trier really pushed the fucking limits of even what those people were doing. And I just respect the fuck out of the guy. And yeah, like Michael J. Fox is still alive, but he really hasn't worked like at all, even in recent years, at least not that I can remember. He's the only other prominent, Parkinson's, diagnosis that I can, think of.
Yeah. I hope that he, still has it in him to do some sort of like magnum opus movie, like his sort of, just something to kind of cap his career off. You mentioned Michael Haneke, and I think about Amour, his movie Amour, and that's kind of like his sort of capstone to his career, Michael Haneke's. So I hope that Lars Von Trier has it in him to do something like that. But
it would just be boss as fuck for this dude to just make yeah, make the best fucking movie he possibly can.
Yeah.
And in Hollywood, just finally is just like, okay, man, here, have it. Like, here's your golden statue. And I would just love to see him on stage, tremulously giving his speech, as he fights back the Parkinson's. I'm already like seeing it, envisioning it. So this is like step one towards the butterfly effect of chaos magic, making it happen. So best wishes to Lars Von Trier, and hopefully everything goes well, and maybe we'll watch Kingdom at some point. This is the news that I think is it's very topical, especially because of all the sexy happening on TV these days. But HBO's shows like Euphoria, and I think even Game of Thrones dipped their toes into things called intimacy coordinators, who are basically just people on set to work with the actors so that nobody thinks that something happened that shouldn't have. Basically, just to have more comfort with being so vulnerable. And it's what got Frank Langella in trouble, because he deviated from what was scripted by the intimacy coordinator. But Sean Bean has no fucking time for this. He thinks that they are detrimental to the cause, which is acting. They inhibit me more. It's drawing attention to things. Somebody saying, "Do this, put your hands there while you touch this." His thing. So like this is a dude who's been in a few sex scenes, and he feels that the natural way lovers behave would be ruined by someone bringing it right down to a technical exercise. Some people were not in agreement. That Rachel Zegler from West Side Story says that spontaneity in intimate scenes can be unsafe, and that was just one of the hot take rebukes I'd come across. Yeah. So, do you think that he is wrong, or are people right to kind of just be like, "Oh, get out of here, mansplaining sex scenes to us, old white man"? I
think he's like, I think this is fine, because what he's saying, if you read the actual interview, is he's essentially saying he's used them. He doesn't think they're necessary. He doesn't necessarily like them, but he's fine with using them. And
so he's not wholesale saying, "Stop doing this shite."
Yeah. And he's not saying like, if I ever work on a movie, I will not work with an intimacy coordinator. He's not. He's fine with them. He makes that clear in the article. So I think a lot of this is kind of a lot of hubbub over nothing. But
clickbait
I guess
bullshit.
Yeah, essentially. And I think it's a good idea, the whole idea of an intimacy coordinator. I think it's probably one of the legacies of the Me Too movement.
Absolutely.
And but here's the thing, is a lot of actresses need to have the realization, actors too, I guess I shouldn't be that cut and dry with it. I should say actors and actresses need to realize that intimacy coordinators are not there for your comfort. They're there to protect the studio. They're there to protect themselves from being sued, from being dragged over the coals in the press. They are the movie studio equivalent of the human resources person at your job, and they're not there for your comfort. They are there to protect company assets. So get that out of your head. It's nice to think about it in that way, but sorry, like
that's a very good point. Very
Yeah.
good point. I'm glad that you made that, because that really does make it crystal clear exactly what's happening here. So yeah, good for everybody, participating, in, a much, safer system, but don't get any ideas about, like why these things are happening. Netflix just doesn't want to have another Kevin Spacey situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it boils down to. They don't want to have to they just don't want to have to throw something into the dustbin and not profit off of it. Which might be happening to, a certain movie called The Flash.
Oh yeah, for sure. They probably. But yeah, this is it is kind of a whole lot of nothing, I guess.
Yeah, I think
I
you're right.
the woman who worked with who he name checks in this article, Sean Bean, who we worked on Snowpiercer with, Lena Hall is her name, and she also kind of rebuked him a little bit on I think Twitter or something, but she was very careful to say, and I kind of admire her in saying this because she didn't drum up more controversy than necessary. Where
Yeah.
she sort of shamed him a little bit, but then she was very careful to add that during the filming of Snowpiercer, Sean Bean went the distance in making her feel comfortable during their sex scenes. So um, it is kind of a whole lot of nothing because there is really nothing problematic about this guy. I mean, knowing him, he was probably a couple of pints deep while he gave this interview and was just like, whatever, fuck it, you know.
Yeah.
And so
I'll say what I'll say, and they'll just have to,
yeah.
string me up for it, or however. I can't do a proper Sean Bean. I'm not even. Is he Irish?
I think he's
He
I think
played.
he's
He,
English.
he played
Honestly.
Irishman a lot. But yeah,
Yeah.
sharp. I remember him. Like, my family used to get Sharp Swore, and those kinds of
Oh yeah.
yeah. That was good stuff. That was Baby Bean.
Mhm.
Poor baby. But speaking of intimacy coordinators, though, did Bodies have intimacy coordinators?
No, because I don't think it really it didn't really need them.
Okay.
And so yeah, I guess I'll get into that, but it's funny that you thought it might because that contributes to my opinion on this movie. But yes, I saw this movie in theaters and yeah, man, I fucking hated this movie. I hate A24's marketing of their horror movies, and this is kind of another movie to add to that pile. That luckily doesn't include the movie X, which I loved because it actually made good on its marketing material. But this movie is not a horror movie. It's not a slasher movie. It's not menacing in any way. It's not violent in any way. It doesn't have any scares. So go in knowing that because this is a subversion of expectations in place of quality. And I'm getting so sick of A24's shtick being that because this has gone full circle now where you are so used to your expectations being subverted by movies under the A24 banner that it's no longer unexpected. You're expecting that to happen. And basically, essentially, this movie is a bunch of Gen Zers get together at a beachside cabin or vacation house and for a weekend of sex, drugs, partying, and drinking. And it's five women, including what's her name, Maria Bakalova from Borat 2, and she's one of the actually the good parts of this movie. She's really good, and I really hope that she continues to get work. But and then Lee Pace is there too, playing a 30-something-year-old guy who still bangs 20-year-olds, and
Good for him.
yeah,
Happy for him.
and he's good too. He's pretty. This is kind of a different role for him, and so it was kind of funny. But yeah, essentially the subtext of this movie is more interesting than the text. The text of it is basically someone gets murdered, and the survivors are trying to figure out who is the murderer, and it's a lot of like dredging up old like relationship drama because at some point or another all of these girls either experimented with each other or were in relationships with each other. And so
Probably very true to young people today.
for sure. Yeah,
Everyone's just bed hopping, going around.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the text of the movie, and it's just really not that interesting because it's just a lot of like after school special type like relationship drama, and it's just not, when you have a situation where there potentially is like a murderer running around, it's just not very interesting to have people like being catty about who their current boyfriend and girlfriend is. And
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah, and so the subtext of this movie is a lot more interesting in my opinion because it doesn't go far enough with it though, and that was kind of the biggest disappointment of this because the subtext of this movie basically says that they establish that all of these girls are essentially from rich, wealthy families, and they've never had to experience any sort of actual like adversity in their lives. They've had
Mm-hmm.
never had to deal with any sort of hardships in any way, and they're all kind of idealistic Gen Zers who are very socially conscious and very very up on the up and up with progressive politics. And essentially the movie explores what happens when people from these situations are confronted with an actual like real problem, and how all of those sort of ideas of like being socially conscious and being like equitable kind of fall away once you're put into these life or death situations, and everybody just it's kind of everybody for themselves, and stuff that was problematic is no longer deemed as such. It becomes like a question of survivability and life and death, and so that it's very interesting in that way. But
So if it's skewering anything, like what would you say? Like, does it satire land at all?
satire what?
Does it satire land at all?
Oh, does the satire land? Yeah, it does. I would say so. I mean, it really has the whole Gen Z like mainstream culture down pat. Like, there's this one scene that's kind of a highlight. That's really funny, where all the girls are like comparing their like mental illnesses, and they're trying to like one up each other, and they're like, I have anxiety, I have panic attacks, I've been diagnosed narcissistic, and then they all end the scene by popping like a communal Xanax. They all just
to chill the fuck out.
Yeah,
that's funny.
And so that's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't go, like I said, it doesn't go far enough with that, and so it's not like, it doesn't go far enough in that if a person who this movie embodies, if the person who is being skewered by this movie goes to this movie, it's not going to give them any sort of like ideas of self-reflection, or like, it's not going to make them double take, basically. They're just going to watch it and be like, whatever.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Because like, if it doesn't actually make these people look like the fools they are, and it just maintains the idea that, well, no, these people are cool, and if you identify with them, you're cool too. It still seems like that's the take, just based on what you're saying.
Yeah, very much so.
And that's the danger, like if you're with doing satire like this, it's kind of like why I feel like, I compare this to Harmony Korine's Spring Breakers, just in terms of like how committed that thing was to whatever it was trying to say. But yeah, you didn't come away from that and think, oh no, at least I don't know, I'm a dude, and I saw that as like a 23-year-old man. But I didn't walk away from that thinking, yeah, I really feel like Alien was like living the right life. Like, I wouldn't have let Gucci Mane kill me. Like that's not what I was thinking. It was just like, well, that's fucked up. And but it was, I'm not exactly Selena Gomez or Vanessa Hudgens from that era, but even they in that movie were like, no, this ain't for me. This lifestyle ain't for me. I'm out. And like, if that movie had a point, it was that, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very apt comparison, and this. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're gonna see this, manage your expectations, because they are going to be subverted, and there's gonna be a lot of people who go to that pissed off once it's done. And so, but yeah, I did not like it overall. But.
Sorry, jumped the gun. But
no, go ahead.
I'm still interested in that movie, especially because I think you had highlighted that Disaster Piece to the soundtrack, and I didn't know that.
Yes,
love that guy. It follows, that soundtrack it was on repeat for a really long time, and like Hyper Light Drifter, another really awesome soundtrack for a video game he made. Glad to hear that he's working again, because he seemed to just fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah, he hasn't worked in, I think, like about 3 years, and then he came back this year with this and that Marcel the Shell movie. He did both of those. So, which
a friend of mine did go see that, and he said it was pretty good.
Okay, yeah, it looks interesting. It looks more interesting than a lot of kid stuff out there. But
is it supposed to be for kids? I think that's for 30-year-old, child adults.
Child at heart.
So yes, yeah, just like, I want whimsy and lessons. I'll tell you what didn't give me whimsy and lessons, though, is fucking Lightyear. I can't believe I put this fucking movie as high as I did. You know, like, this popped up on streaming, and it just hit me. I was like, oh yeah, this movie deserves it. You know, because it just probably was not that good. And then I watched it, and if they have any like articulated comment to make that isn't just lambasting it for things I didn't like, this movie was sold as, this is what Andy was watching, you know, when he asked his mommy for a Buzz Lightyear toy. No, it fucking wasn't. Like, if they were true to what I've seen Toy Story 1 recently, even Toy Story 2, if you are true to what Buzz Lightyear is in those two initial artifacts of Toy Story, then it would not fucking look like this. It would look like that fucking cartoon that Disney made, you know, like, you know, 20 fucking years ago. If you remember that. Like Buzz Lightyear Star Command. Like, it would look like that. You know, because this just looks like every other lame, updated, like, for modern mores, you know, transformation of every piece of pop culture that we have seen in, like, the last 10 years. You know, like, yes, this is made for modern audiences. This was not made for a little boy in Pixar land who loved toys. You know what I mean? Like, he did not go to this movie. His mom did not take him to this movie. You know, like, the 90s of Pixar land don't even know what like, gay people are. They don't exist. You know what I mean? And I like, that's a dumb little point to make, but that's kind of the whole point. You go ahead, put some of that in there, but at least, like, have a story and have characterization that is in keeping with what started it all. Just throwing Chris Evans into this, you know, it just is the same lame, like, culture war politicking, dictating what art looks like, instead of just making something coherent and entertaining. And I, like, yeah, if you were writing, like, a Lightyear, like, a teenage adult oriented comic book, like, this is, like, written for you, the modern internet, Twitter, you know, culture warrior, comic book movie fan. So, like, it just checks every box. You have cute little critter that, you know, is at the same time like a god that can fix every situation. You know, with the robot cat that shows up. You know, you have the same sex love, you know, story, and it's told beautifully. Don't get me wrong. It's like, there is good filmmaking here. It just isn't what it purports to be. So don't fucking lie to me. Be honest about what it is, and don't be mad at me or anybody else if we don't like it for what it is. Especially when we're told it's going to be something else. So with that, yeah, if you grew up watching Pixar movies, this is probably where you are as an adult, which is what's fascinating. And I think that's, you know, really what's going on here. The wider audience for Pixar movies isn't just kids and families, it's all the adults who grew up with it now. And I think if people are, you know, just going to shit on this movie, I think they're missing the forest for the trees here. There's a reason why this movie is the way it is, and it's not just for culture war bullshit. It's just because this is where Buzz Lightyear fans are in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's you make a good point, because I hadn't thought about it like that, but it's kind of like the you know, you say the movie's like dishonest, and so it kind of,
the advertising is dishonest.
The advertising dishonest.
The movie is fine. Yeah.
It reminds me of like Turning Red, in that Turning Red was pretty upfront about what it was.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, it didn't get lambasted as much, you know, by people. I mean, I've seen the clip. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen that clip that everybody is like so up in arms about, of like the female space ranger literally like pecking on the lips with her like partner, her like female partner, and it's like, come on, really? Like, who cares?
Yeah,
you know,
who does care? Because what's more important about that whole relationship is seeing because like the whole plot of the movie is Buzz crashes the ship, so they have to figure out a way to go to hyperspeed, and he just keeps on jumping further and further into the future and watching everyone he knew get old and die, which is family fucking entertainment if I've ever fucking seen it. But it
kids' version of Interstellar.
Literally, yeah. It's like it does that whole thing, and you get to see that whole relationship from like the first like date, the first time Buzz finds out that they exist, to all the way to the moment when she's like dying with her grandchild in her arms. And that's what I mean. Like, there is like effective Pixar heart-tugging storytelling here, but like don't lie to yourself or to your audience about what the movie actually is. And if I have a beef, it's that. But I could see anybody sit down and watch this and maybe enjoy it. But the fact that there was such a kerfuffle over whether or not that little chaste little kiss was going to be in this movie or not, that annoys me. Because the better thing, and I think the thing that illustrates what human love is to people who may not agree with same-sex couples, is everything that comes after that little kiss, or around it. Like, everyone was so focused on having that little nugget in there that they missed the true beauty and virtue that it was shown to people that maybe maybe could have been moved by the message. Instead of just being negative and patronizing, they could have just done the damn thing and just done it without a fuss, I guess is what I'm saying. And it would have been better received by me.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's enough about Lightyear. I've said enough about this movie. We have a couple quick hits. You wanted to talk about, I forget what it was. Why don't you just take the lead first? Uncharted. That's right. Yeah, and I did watch that too. Okay. What was your thoughts on this long-awaited adaptation of? And is this Naughty Dog or the other company?
This was Naughty Dog.
Naughty Dog.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this movie. It was fine, I guess. Rip off of Indiana Jones, and the one thing I will say about it is, gosh, I think Mark Wahlberg sucks as an actor.
He's so bad.
He always just plays himself, and he is literally like a detriment to this movie because of the character that he's supposed to be playing is so cool and so good in the games.
Yeah.
And he just plays himself, and it's what he's been doing his entire career. The only times that Mark Wahlberg has ever been used effectively in a movie is in The Departed and in Boogie Nights,
where he was just being himself. Yeah.
Because the directors knew how to use him at that point in his career, and otherwise he just sucks. And like I would point everyone to, like, if you want to get his sort of impression of what a Mark Wahlberg performance looks like, I would point you out to the SNL sketch from the mid-2000s, I believe, of Andy Samberg doing the Mark Wahlberg talks to animals. Have you ever seen that?
A long time ago. I'm gonna have to watch that now. God damn it.
It's exactly. It's such a good impression of what his performances are like, because he's just there and being himself, and it's just he makes no effort to embody whatever character he's playing. And so that's all I really have to say about Uncharted. Is my gripe with him.
I feel you. I understand exactly where you're coming from, because everyone else is just trying so damn hard, and he's just phoning it in from like the moment he shows up on screen. He is annoyed to be there. It's cutting into his gym time, and he has to deal with this fucking kid. It's like, oh, Robert Downey Jr. can handle him. I can handle him, can I? Like this little fucking guy. And yeah, but if there's anything else that holds this movie back, it's, I don't know, like none of the action ever feels exciting. None of the peril feels real. Whereas if I had had a video game controller in my hand and I was trying to like navigate like that plane sequence, because like they're ripping off the games left, right, and center. It's not like literally 1-to-1 the first video game, as far as I remember, because that's the only one I've ever played. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah, you're right about that. It's they're kind of picking and choosing where they take the set pieces from. The plane sequence happens, I believe, in the third game,
yeah,
and
I saw a Let's Play of
the
that
yeah, and then like the did you by chance watch like the end credit scene?
with his brother, right?
With no, with the guy from Game of Thrones, the guy who plays oh, what is his name? The Ironborn guy, the sea guy from
Oh
what's
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
name?
Yeah, Pilu. A lot of
Pilu Abyss or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's so they set him up as like the villain of the next movie if they ever make another one. And they actually talk about the Nazi submarine from the first game during the end credit scene. So yeah,
Interesting.
they're just kind of picking and choosing where they take stuff from the games.
And that's dangerous, because
Hmm.
then you wind up like that Resident Evil movie that just came out, which was a hodgepodge of like 3 of the games, but yeah, yeah, I don't know. The yeah, like Tomb Raider is a better Indiana Jones ripoff, and I'm talking about both of those Angelina Jolie movies. Both of them are more worth your time than this is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. That's the hot take that I have for this. Okay, there we go. I just need to advance a little bit. The day has finally come, Matt. You have no fucking idea how long I've been waiting for this day. The United States finally got 25 episodes of season 3 of Bluey, Australia's favorite dog family. They're the kings of Disney Plus, and if you have a child in your home, you have seen those first 2 seasons, so many times that you could repeat them literally word for word. I know I can. And this season, because I'm on the Bluey Facebook pages. Shout out to Indy's mom's weed stash, really good page, her meme stash rather, because she's like the hippie, like Afghan dog who doesn't let her kid have sugar or eat meat, and she just totally smokes. So the whole page is based around Bluey, but with weed. It's really funny. But because I'm on there, I know a little bit of controversy because we in America are so soft in our sensibilities. They can't have fun things like 2 dog dads talking about vasectomies in the background while the kids are having their adventure, or they can't have an episode that's entirely focused around a family meeting about farts in the household. Like there's a lot of censorship happening around Bluey. There's like 4 or 5 things that were altered in this season, and there's at least 2 episodes that flat out aren't viewable in the United States. So you either need to pirate them or, don't pirate them, obviously, but there will be people who do that. I'm covering my ass. Don't pirate anything. Don't do that. Just buy them legally on the Australia iPlay store while you use a VPN, because that is legal somehow, I guess. But you have to buy them. You can't just watch them. I don't think, like, those particular episodes. But they're welcome relief, some variety in my life, and the writing is impeccable. This is still the best show for families. That they're brief. The animation is great. The voice acting is authentic and real because they use their actual children, the production staff. They use their actual children to be all of the kids in the show. So they're uncredited, but like they do maintain this like believability of, oh yeah, this is definitely a 4-year-old doing this dialogue, but it doesn't sound like a 4-year-old doing the dialogue. Like they're actually acting. They're doing a good job. It's not like the kid from Monsters Incorporated that's just baby babble the whole time. But yeah, hearty recommendation as per usual. Thank God there's more episodes. The last 25 of them will be released, I think, in October, maybe September. But yeah, thank God. Thank God, new Bluey Day. New Bluey Day. And closing out our streaming section, we got to talk about it, Matt. This is some of the best TV I've ever seen. For All Mankind, the season 3 finale. Holy shit. I love this show. I am in love. But, like, were there any gripes to be had for you this season? Or, like, were you kind of happy with where it went and how it ended?
Yeah, I mean, I like the season overall. think if I had to complain about anything, it would be the whole Danny Stevens plot line. I thought was pretty awful. Like his like descent into like getting crazy, I guess. But see, the sometimes the way that this show produces conflict is really kind of like inorganic, and I think that's one example. And the other example is actually also that I can think of is also in this season is the whole like NASA conspiracy theorist thing, because it was kind of clear from the jump that the show had really no interest in getting to know these people. They were basically just there to provide the rising or the conflict in the final episode, the thing that sets everything off in the final episode, and they were basically human set pieces. And so those are my complaints. It's not that big of a deal, though. Overall, I thought the season was great. I am so glad that they didn't kill off Ed. That was so fucking badass when he landed the thing and then like walked out of there.
Steely-eyed missile man. He is America's greatest astronaut, fictional or real. I wish our timeline was this timeline, just so this motherfucker could be my hero. He's like pushing 60. He's fucking landing tin cans on Mars like it's nothing, walking away from wreckage like he's like, who the fuck is Chuck Yeager? We got fucking Ed. So good, like, and that's what I mean. Like that emotional high from the end of that episode was just so great, and just in terms of that, like I totally understand where you're coming from, just about the contrivance of all of the mechanisms of its storylines, especially that one, because we come into this season and those two characters, those brothers, their parents died on the fucking moon. And now they're this really silly statue outside of the space center. Is it the Johnson Space Center?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, JSC. And and his brother's this badass, and he's just this fucking loser, who just doesn't give a shit. He's got fucking pimples, and he has a horrible haircut. And why did he end up that way? I guess he was just ignored and neglected, I guess. And it kind of made sense just in terms of the alternate history of it, that this is a society that has solved the energy problem in the 90s. You know what I mean? To such an extent that the people who have been put out of work aren't factory workers, like in our reality. It's just energy people. It's everyone who worked in fossil fuels that's out of a job. And the NASA conspiracists, the tinfoil hat thing was kind of out of left field. But it would make sense that, there would be some, especially since there was a genuine cover-up, that there might be some questioning about what happened. In that I think it was in season 2, that conflict.
Yeah.
And how world peace was maintained.
I don't have a problem with the storyline itself. I just thought that the two like main conspiracy theorists, the man and the woman, were just kind of like human, powder kegs, I guess, that the show used to pretty much just to create conflict or to
very
create
one-dimensional.
The big thing that happens in the season, which of course is them exploding the.
It's basically it's basically the Oklahoma City bombing, but at James it was at Johnson Space Center. It's the one in Texas, right? Or is it? No,
yes, I believe. Texas, I think is.
Kennedy Space Center is in Florida. That's Cape Canaveral. God, I got to get my NASA lore right. But the I don't know, like Margot's storyline I really liked. It annoyed me initially when she was being captured, by her Soviet counterpart, but it paid off because she walked the fucking knife and committed herself to the choices she had made, and it's rare in TV that you see a character do that. Honestly, often they just weasel around and find some way to maintain the status quo, but she was just like, nope, I've set my sails, my anchor is up, and I have no control over the outcome now. I've made this choice long ago, and I knew it when I made it, and I didn't think that her storyline was going to end up going in that direction, basically.
Yeah, where she basically is now a on the run in Russia, or a expat in Russia.
Exactly. Now she's working for the Soviet. Now the Soviets have the genius. Their space program is only where it is because of her. They'd be in the dust because of all the advances that that NASA was making. Post season 2, and everything that the private sphere was doing with Helios. But what did you think? Did Helios really pay off, or were they also just another plot point, another mechanism to keep the story going?
I thought it was pretty predictable what was going to happen there with, her kind of taking over the company. But I'm kind of interested in that storyline now that, she got killed off.
Yeah.
Because, what's going to happen now with that? And now they're clearly more interested in going back to the moon to mine helium-3. So I'm sort of reinvested in that storyline now that it's kind of up in the air at the end of this season. And very excited to see where that goes. And of course, we have to talk about the North Korean.
Dude, what did that? I was so fucking happy with that little yoink. That was an enjoyable mini bottle episode too, showing all of his time just eating canned fish or whatever that is, and just going slowly insane. I really appreciated that. It was a neat thing, a big win for the Hermit Kingdom there.
Yeah, and presumably that guy becomes a supporting character now in the next season or something, because I don't know if you knew this. You've watched Dexter, right? The show Dexter.
Only up to season 4.
Okay. The North Korean guy, that is what is his
Asuka?
name? Masuke? Yeah, Masuka. That's Masuka.
No fucking shit. What? No.
Yeah, it kind of blew my mind when I figured that out too. And so it's you don't hire an actor that's of that caliber just to have him be in one episode. So I presume that he's going to become a supporting character now.
Now that you say that, I see his fucking eyes. I'm just so that character is was always just bald. So to see him with actually I don't. Oh my god! But it's the eyes and the way his mouth sits. I totally see. That's so cool.
Yeah,
good for him. Yeah, because this is the fucking show to be on. The spaceship designs this season were so fucking good. It really started just looking like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Every conceivable design for a spaceship, we got to see it. The Martian rovers were really neat. I don't know, there's just a lot of rewarding stuff about this show that grabbed me in the first 2 seasons that are going exactly where I hoped they would. But for once, the season ends with the first season ends on Earth 2. I take that back, because they watch the Sea Dragon launch, isn't that right? Yeah. And season 2, it ends on Mars. That's the big leap forward that they show, and now we're back on Earth again. So maybe that does kind of signal what the next season's going to be about. And it might just be the corporatizing of space, becoming more and more like the Expanse rather than the Brave New World that they were building. But I guess, we are going to have those people stuck on Mars. So what the fuck can happen on Mars? Who else is going to try and get there while they're stuck,
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. And I think that the time jump this season isn't as big, because it jumps from 1996 to 2003 is when next season will start. And I think they're doing that because they do want to keep a lot of these people around, a lot of the people that survived this season, especially Ed. He's going to be, running around as a 70-year-old, so
he's going to
see what happens there.
He's going to be the first natural death in space. Everybody else is, dies from big explosions, gunshots, whatever, exposure. He's just going to be a decrepit old man, and he's just going to die of old age. And
I hope that's the case, because I think he needs to have his sort of ride off into the sunset, because they really do play with his death a lot in this show, where they're oh, is he gonna die, is he not gonna die, type of thing. And I really hope that he gets his ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, Joel Kinnaman, this is my favorite role he's ever had, and he was perfect for it, and he's just like, as he continues to age up, his character, yeah, it gets harder for him to do things, but he still fucking delivers. Not sad to see Karen go. Fuck that bitch. I'll just say that cheating whore. But the guy that she was cheating with, that young little boy, she just Stifler's mommed him, basically.
Yeah.
He has now been banished to the North Korean pod because of, he finally admitted his actions, and now everyone's voted him off the fucking island. He's probably going to be the main antagonist for the Mars people, isn't
he? Yeah, I don't know, because they made sure to very, very much show that gun was buried in the sand, and they marked it with that, whatever that tire iron, that space tire iron was. But so he's going to obviously probably find that, I would presume. And yeah, I assume he's going to probably go even more crazy, or somebody's going to find him on Mars, like another country, and he's going to like switch sides or something like that.
If you had to bet, based on this universe, who's going to get to Mars before Sojourner 2 does? What other country? Like India, maybe Iran? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I think those are kind of the best. I mean, I guess they haven't done China yet.
Yeah, China.
But
because if North Korea is fucking getting there, how is China not there?
Yeah.
I guess President Wilson, kept us from, shipping all of our manufacturing overseas. So maybe China just isn't as big in their britches in this reality. And that's why electing a woman president in 1992 was the right thing to do, and we fucked it up. God, because this world that they're building here is just a utopia.
For the most part, it's very much the idealized version of ours.
Absolutely, but still a good show. I keep on telling people to get. I told my boss, I was like, because he has Apple TV. And he's watched so much random shit on Apple TV, and I was just like, Bob, you haven't fucking watched For All Mankind yet? Like, this is the only show that matters. Like, that's and Severance. He hadn't seen Severance yet either. God, but he did like Nope, so I'll give him that. And he also gave me a job.
Yeah, they're putting out good stuff. I'll mention just as a kind of cap to this segment. I did this week. I'll probably talk about it next week, but I did watch the first episode this week of 5 Days at Memorial, and very, very promising start to that show is what I'll say. So
I'll give it a watch. If I can find the time, because I installed Multiversus, the definitely not Smash Bros. Ripoff that Warner Brothers made, and for what it is, it's okay. It definitely, it's absolutely is just, it's the exact same gameplay. I think I ran the wrong clip first here. But yeah, so this is just like what the combat looks like. It's
choose your character.
I am Harley Quinn in this clip. I got some really good fights, that I captured here. I did really good. I mean, I look really good. But when you run into people who have like a level 20 Batman, that's how much time they've put into playing Batman, and they look like the god esport players who do Smash Bros, where like you're just sitting there like, how do you even make the character do that?
Prepare yourself.
Yeah, it can get that ridiculous, but yeah, I forget that it just captures what it is. Yeah, but this is just what it looks like. The more damage you accumulate, the easier it is to knock you off the map. And like they don't have a hell of a lot of characters yet, and because it's a pay-to-win fucking game, it takes fucking forever to grind up enough in-game currency to unlock everything. So you can buy this thing called Gleamium for your hard-earned American dollars, and then you can unlock the Iron Giant without having to spend 2 months playing it. So that's the problem. It's they give you like 3 characters to play to start the game out, and none of them are very fun or any good. And as soon as you actually do like unlock somebody who's like has some quirks to it, like the Iron Giant, I wish I could unlock that. I'm halfway done. because he can do so many cool things, but he's experimental. Who knows if they're going to maintain aspects of him that are so cool that you think all the new things you can do with him. But yeah, it's fun. It's like if you don't have a Switch, this is the next best thing, I guess. And it's free unless you don't have patience or the will to slog through it.
Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, I'm not really interested in that type of games. I don't really like fighting games, but I do like the look of it. And, it's kind of cool how they managed to get all of these different, disparate characters in the same art style.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the stages. I like this Rick and Morty.
Yeah, they haven't added Rick or Morty to the game yet. I wish they would, because I can only imagine what those characters do. But yeah, they do a really good job with the art style. Like all the DC characters are just it's basically just animated versions. Idealized. Like Bruce. They're not even like Bruce Timmey. They look a little more different in that respect. But then all the Cartoon Network characters look exactly as you expect them to. Even like Ultra Instinct Shaggy, because this game exists because of that meme. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, where he goes Super Saiyan.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that meme came into existence, and Warner Brothers literally just went to a company and they were like, "Okay, let's do this. Let's take this meme. Let's have him fight Batman. Let's see how it goes." And this company was this player first games. Were like, "Okay, and this is the game we got." And it's respectable, and it could probably develop into a solid enough player base. But I just grate against grindy bullshit like this, and I refuse to spend any money on it, and I don't have the time to spend on it either. So I'm glad I got to try it, but I may not give it too much. The only appeal I had was that it takes 5 minutes to do a match at most, and then I can just walk away. I can sneak it in without too much fuss. So that was the appeal. But yeah, not really rewarding in the long term. And that kind of does it for the mainline body of the show. Do you need a bathroom break, Matt? Or do you have your camelback ready to go?
I'm good to go, yeah.
Because the time has come, ladies and gentlemen, from the Mezzanines. Top 5 favorite films. This is... God, I hope this... If we get this done in less than an hour, I'll be impressed. But yeah, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We have 9 total films to discuss. We have 1 match that happened, if for no other reason than I saw it and realized the mistake I had made by overlooking it, and I had to also include it on mine. But we'll get to that. But do you kind of want to give a rundown on how we're going to do this?
Yeah, so we're just going to give our top 5 alternating. We did go ahead and do a 5-to-1 ordered, so we're not copping out here. We're giving our number 1 movie of all time. And so I guess to start us off, I wanted to ask you, what is your criteria for a top 5 movie? What goes into it for you, and how has your top 5 changed over the years?
I guess it boils down to, has my enthusiasm for this movie diminished at all? If I've seen it recently, do I feel differently about it or not? Have I seen something more recently that I'd be more willing to watch again over this, as much as I may like it? Yeah, I guess that's kind of what it boils down to. It's because some of these movies I'm about to talk about today, I haven't seen in probably 5 or 6 years. But I still know for certain that they are where they are for me, because I haven't had to check back in with them, to change my mind, and I know for sure that the qualities that remain timeless still are, and that they actually bolster my film nerd cred, because what our parting question is going to be. It's my credibility will not diminish with anyone if I share that this is in my top 5. Because how about for you?
I kind of agree with you. I I think if you would have asked me like 10 years ago this same sort of question, I think my list would have been a little more generic, as far as like a little more resembling like uh, the sort of generic, like the IMDb top 250, that type of thing. And I think over time, I would like to think my tastes have gotten more specific to me as a person, a bit more varied. And I'm less concerned now than I used to be with my list being like agreeable to others. Like
Yeah.
I think a lot, a while back, when I was in college or high school, I would have been a lot more careful about like, oh, I don't want to put this movie on my list because what would other people think? Or like what would like. I guess I just don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
I don't, and so
Yeah. And I guess, yeah, so just to nail down what I said a little bit ago, a little bit,
yeah.
in light of what, like, how you're framing it, it's like my credibility for myself. Yeah, I guess is what it boils down to. It's like, am I being based? Yes. Was I based 10 years ago? Probably not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a little less generic, I would like to think, than my list used to be. And then I guess on a more specific level, I think about what films have stayed with me like 5, 10 years after I've watched them, and I think that's going to kind of show with my list where I don't really have anything, I don't think, on my list that's in like that has been released in the past like 5 years, and that's because I think we tend to look upon more recent things more fondly, just as like a species, as humans. And so I like to kind of give it time to marinate,
Yeah.
and that'll kind of reflect on my list, and just those movies that have stayed with me over the years, and stuff that gave me sort of an emotional reaction to them when I saw them, whether that was any type of emotion, sad, happy, excited, impressed, anything. But
And that's, yeah, that kind of is it, isn't it? Like, it can be all of the gamut of emotions. Like, and impressed is a good one, because like these a lot of the movies we're going to talk about today could fill you with a lot of different feelings. But I love a movie that makes me go fuck, like this dude brought it, like this was awesome. Like, I can't believe someone just made a fucking movie like this. Like, yeah, like I am impressed with showmanship, and someone like really, yeah, showing off, like doing things that haven't been done like this, that kind of thing. So yeah, we'll be exploring. It's like like how long the movies have maybe been on our list, why we chose it, how many times we think we've watched it, like where we first saw it for the first time, and then we'll kind of dig into commonalities between all the different picks, from who is in it, themes and all that jazz.
yeah, and feel free to kind of answer those questions at your discretion, because we don't have to do like a bullet point like run through those. So
yeah, because the formula is lame, improv is forever. So we'll just hop into it. We're gonna kind of change up the format a little bit. I hope I haven't made it impossible for me to do it correctly. Okay, there we go. So I just need to, it might get a little cumbersome, but we'll make it work. Bear with me just one more second. I have to get, because we want to cover our fucking asses, we have this fun little graphic that says user promotional material protected under fucking fair use. So get off our fucking backs, whoever you are. But yeah, we will get that going here. Because, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah, I can start. Yeah, so my first one this is probably the pick that's the most tailored to me, I guess. Probably my most out there pick. It's 1997's In the Company of Men. And this is from director-writer Neil LaBute. Stars Aaron Eckhart and Matt Malloy. I first came across this movie when I was working at a secondhand sort of video store called VidCycle in Fargo, North Dakota. And
I bought a lot of DVDs from VidCycle.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff come through there. And this one kind of came across my lap, as I was buying some secondhand DVDs from a customer, because the idea was, if anybody doesn't know, it was basically a pawn shop, but the only thing we sold were movies, TV shows, and video games, and we would buy them from people and then resell them. And so this came across a pile I was looking through, and I kind of stashed it away for my use later to buy it before it could get on the shelf. And this movie is so like I don't know, it's one of those unsung classics to me, where nobody really thinks about this movie anymore. I think it has a lot to do with its premise and the material that it covers. The idea behind it is essentially two business executives, one of them a proclaimed misogynist, and then another one who just got dumped by his ex-girlfriend, decide to essentially, on behalf of the entire male race or male gender, ruin the life of the most uncorruptible female they can find.
It's so sad.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. And that's the interesting part about it for me, is that this movie is disturbing and cruel and wicked, but it rarely resorts to anything other than words. It's pure script. It's pure screenplay. It's one of the best screenplays I've ever heard in my life.
Because this trailer I'm running right now, it's the Red Band trailer from '97, and the narrator in it makes the point in it to be like, this is the most like explicit and explosive movie of the year. There's no sex, there's no nudity, and there's no violence. Yeah. And that was the ad campaign for it, basically.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that, but and yeah, I mean, this movie is Neil LaBute, the writer director, basically has gone on record to say that the way that he started writing this movie was he wrote a line on a sheet of paper that just said, "Let's ruin somebody's life." And then he wrote the screenplay from there, and that's how the movie came about. And yeah, I love this movie. I think a lot of people make the mistake these days of, they think because a movie covers certain material or because a movie portrays something that it is an endorsement of that thing. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case at all. There's a lot of people would find this movie very problematic today, I think, but everybody that should get their comeuppance gets it by the end of this movie, and it has a great ending too because of that. And so I think that's part of the reason why this is kind of fallen by the wayside in more recent years. But yes, that is my number 5 pick.
Very solid. I have to confess, I've never seen it. I've seen.
Oh, really?
I've seen Faye, because he also did Faye Grimm, right? And Henry Danger.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen those weird movies, but for some reason I haven't seen this. You've recommended it to me before. I think I just need to do it.
It's great.
I need to challenge myself.
It's definitely his best. Neil LaBute, unfortunately, has kind of had a disappointment of a career, especially more recently. But this was kind of his... He's one of those directors, I think, that had one really, really great idea, and I think that's kind of going to be what he was remembered for, and that's fine. Yeah. I mean, you can have one really, really great idea, and you can have it kind of be the summation of your career. And if this was the only movie he had ever made, it would have been perfectly fine.
Definitely, and that's, I guess that does that's a big endorsement for any filmmaker, and I think it speaks to the challenge of any artist to just be like, okay, I gotta try and match this again. And it's like, that's the war of art, beyond just actually creating anything in general. But to have something that that starts your vibration, your frequency, it's a beautiful thing, when it's indelible like this one is. Is that there's always something to come back to, even if he really fucking loses his way. Because I don't know, I didn't get a lot out of Henry Danger or Faye Grimm. They were just it was just too out there. But but at the same time, I knew that he was a really edgy, dangerous filmmaker, so he had an allure to it. I think I should have just found a way to watch this. It just hasn't ever popped up on streaming. I feel like if it had, I would have seen it by now.
Yeah, it is very hard to find nowadays. I think there are a couple. I think I saw it was on Apple and it was on Google Play and stuff. But to find an actual like physical copy of this is very hard, and it's only ever been released on DVD.
That's really sad.
So
yeah.
yeah.
But it was at a golden era in the '90s in Hollywood when really gonzo shit like that could happen, and something that never would have flown, because that was a very politically correct time. And there wasn't a lot that they tolerated back then, even though it seems like we did.
Yeah, I think this movie got the boost of like the post Tarantino scramble for indie movies, where once Tarantino hit it, every film studio out there was like, fuck, we need to find our own Tarantino. And so they were greenlighting all these movies that were like absolutely a couple years earlier would have been considered like absolutely horrendously offensive.
The 90s hadn't seen a GIMP yet, I'm pretty sure. Maybe that's not the case.
Yeah. But yeah, so what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a film I've talked about before, but it's just one I've never been able to shake. And when we did our Best Korea Super Special, back at the beginning, this was one of my big recommendations, but that's I Saw the Devil, which was directed by Kim Ji-woon, written by Park Hoon-jung, and starring Lee Byung-hun and Choi Min-sik as a dueling pair of a special agent, like a Korean Secret Service agent whose wife has been killed by a serial killer, and the revenge that he struggles to mete out on the guy after he hunts him down. It's like this guy's processing his grief and he wants to get his revenge, and he narrows down who did it, and he's basically given permission to just go and fucking kill this guy. Have whatever revenge he wants. So it resides in this world of Korean revenge thrillers, of the oddities, and beyond that, like Old Boy and like the whole Vengeance trilogy, really. But it just took it to another level, because it made it a serial killer movie, but they still had the frenetic, like action and just like you talk about extremities. They go beyond what Hollywood would ever commit to do, even though they've flirted of making this into an American film. They haven't done it, because from the beginning you just watch this woman get abducted, murdered, chopped up, and like her blood washed down a drain. And that's how this fucking movie begins, all the way up to like a child finding like a piece of her body, like her ear, in a canal, and it doesn't let up. There is no bright spot in this movie. It's an endurance test in a respect, to a certain extent, because once things go wrong, they go horribly fucking wrong. And the resolution is the finale is just so unbelievably brutal and powerful. It has a payoff as far as its message, about the like how like fleeting, like whatever revenge gives you, like whatever relief it gives you, it is absolutely fleeting. The grief and the horror you put yourself through in the process lives forever, and you can just see it on Lee Byung-hun's face at the end. And that's why I put him in the collage, the 3 frames of his reaction at the end of the movie. I first saw this on Netflix, I believe. I had seen the trailer for it. I was already an avid hunter of Korean media at that point, but I was scared of this movie because it's important, because it was the first movie Choi Min-sik made in like 10 years, because he got mad about the Korean embargo on American films being released, being lifted. So he was like, well, fuck, why even have a Korean film industry then? I'm not going to fucking act. And he came back for this movie, and it's just a fucking showstopper of a performance. One of cinema's great bad guys. And he gets his in the end, don't worry. But throughout the movie, you just get to see him work and do his evil and be just as badass as the protagonist, and it's just fucking awesome, and I just want everyone to fucking see it.
This is a great pick. I fully endorse this, and I think I also kind of was in the same position. I also saw it on Netflix initially and had really no idea what it was, and then was just like, holy fuck, like so messed up. And but yeah, very very definitely one of the best Korean movies ever. I think the only reason I didn't put it on my list when we did our Korea special was because you put it on yours.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to have a little bit of variance between our lists, but yeah, totally awesome.
Totally, yeah. It keeps the escalation is great because but what's amazing about it, because people might not catch it because the subtitles are not really picking up on what's happening on screen, but there's always, no matter what is going on throughout like the game of cat and mouse, whoever the serial killer winds up like being with are just as evil as he is. Like because you think you're in a benign situation, and then you realize, oh, it's not just a taxi driver and another guy driving around in the middle of the night. There's something else going on here. It's not just a nice guy with a house. You know, he's got women locked up in the basement that he butchers and eats for his meals every day. Like that's the kind of shit we're dealing with here. But if you have a sensitive stomach, maybe not for you, but for me, it was a catalyzing event. It really, it stood the test of time. And like the more I think about the first time I saw it, like the more I just want to watch it again, because like it still gives me the same rush as Everything Falls Apart. And the number 4 pick, we ended up being the same for both of us, because I saw it on the final list and I was just like, okay, Lord of the Rings, I'm reminded that Children of Men exists, so yeah, as soon as I get this trailer up and running here, we can
so this is the 2006 movie from Alfonso Cuarón, kind of before he hit it big. And this movie, I initially saw this. I remember exactly where I was when I saw this. I went and saw it in theaters, and it was one of those movies I just kind of saw because I saw everything, because at the time I was working at the theater, and I saw this on the same day that I saw The Prestige, Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, and it was like just a mind-melting like day of movies for me that day. And I mean, this, I guess to kick it off, this movie has such like a stark vision of the future that is actually pretty on point and could still become our future. I mean, we're only 5 years away from the future that this movie kind of shows, and it's very interesting because I don't think that it's that alarmist, like the future that it's showing. And I just like all the little things about it, like the assisted suicide company and the like baby Diego stuff, because the premise is, if anybody hasn't seen it, is that basically humanity can no longer have children for some unspecified reason, and there happens to be a woman who has one. It's basically like the only pregnant woman left on Earth, and
she's an illegal immigrant.
Yes, that's right.
Because you talk about the things that it gets right, the population decline, infertility problems happening all over the world we live in now. And it, like, years before, it was like 10 years before it was really relevant, he was like saying, oh no, there's going to be mass migration from all over the world to England, or like to Europe. So everything we were seeing, everything we've seen the last 6 years, it's literally like this thing saw the future, even though like it's the book it's based on also did. But props to Cuarón for just really being like, oh no, this is what it'll look like, and wouldn't you know it, that's what it fucking looks like.
And the defining thing for this movie for me was, this movie, I saw this when I would have been a sophomore in high school, and this movie opened me up to the like technological side of filmmaking. because Kieran's always been on the right side of that idea with, you know, the even like the time turner scenes in Prisoner of Azkaban are so like impressive and unique, and then Gravity just as a film is one big technological marvel, and the long take in Roma that is like the direct descendant of the long take in this movie. You can literally draw like a through line between these two movies, and this movie was such a marvel to me because of all of the like technology they used to get the camera in places where it should be impossible for a camera to go and like, to move through.
That one car chase where the camera never leaves the vehicle and it just swivels. Yeah, like that's a tour de force. But that's what is infuriating about this movie. There's like 4 or 5 sequences where you're just like, what the fuck? Like, how did they do that? Like, did they do that? And you find out that there is some cheating, there's some splicing, maybe, but the whole point is that like so much of this movie happens in camera that, you know, people should be fucking ashamed of the shit they make today. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he showed you how easy, like, maybe it wasn't easy, but nothing is felt as vital. Like the action in this is better than a lot of like quote unquote action films from quote unquote action directors. The palpable danger, like in the finale when he's like running around, you know, like the bullets flying everywhere and like, you know, like having to like kill a dude with a brick, you know what I mean? Like that kind of like it just and yeah, like it does give you moments to breathe. It does give you some wonderful, you know, supporting characters like Michael Caine's pothead, you know, hippie activist, you know, who's just hanging out in the woods, just like smoking strawberry cough, you know, weed and just hanging out with his dog, really living the apocalypse dream, if there is one. Just get the fuck away from everyone and just get fucking high all day and watch the world burn, because it's fucking burning. Yeah.
And I was going to add to that another great supporting performance, Danny Huston. He's not in the movie for very long.
Like a single scene. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like a sort of he lives. I love the place where he lives. He's kind of in like the part of London that where all like the rich people still live. That's still like really idealistic, and like they drive through that park and there's like a zebra on like a leash and stuff in there, and then they go to his house and he has the statue of David because art has become like privatized, and he wanted to save it from a war zone, and then they have that awesome view out his window
with the Pink Floyd pig.
Yeah, the Pink Floyd animals. Yeah.
And it's all while the Court of the Crimson King is playing.
Yes.
And that was the first time I had ever heard that song, was when I watched this movie. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it in a theater. Both it and The Prestige were bought on DVD in the same go with The Departed. Like when I went mad in Rapid City. Well, I was like on spring break and I was just like, give it all to me. And I watched them on a tiny little like portable DVD player in the back of a car. And so very different experiences, but it like you say, the technological, advances, just in terms of like what it enabled them to do, and what the end result came out to be, and just the world building in general, very, very effective. It's show don't tell, taken to its like limit, because eventually you just kind of have to have people blathering. Or at least when there is exposition happening, it's like diegetic to a scene, and it's not offensive because people are reacting to it appropriately. Because the opening scene of this movie, where they're all just standing in like a bodega, watching the news about Baby Diego being murdered, the youngest person on the planet, dying, and everyone's just fucking shell shocked, and Clive Owen's character just fucking walks in and gets his like cigarettes and coffee and just fucking pieces out, and then someone blows the fucking shop up next to him. So it's like you already kind of know, but just based on how alien everything looks, that this is London, but this is not London. Like, this is like a third world country. You know, it just sets the tone, and it lets you know that you're in a different place so brilliantly without just having a voiceover going like, everything changed once the baby stopped coming. It avoids bullshit like that. And when things are just kind of, explained or exposited, it's actually kind of, it makes sense that the character would be talking about it. It's not just for the sake of the audience. Mm-hmm. So yeah, kudos to the script, on this movie too. And it goes without saying that the last 45 minutes of it probably could have been a movie on its own, just because of how much action they pack into it. But I don't know, this is just one of those movies that no other movie has kind of felt like it since, especially in the realm of science fiction. It did soft sci-fi so well, and I've never read the book it's based on, and I feel like I don't have to, because this fucking movie is so good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say on it was, give it to me in 4K, god damn it.
No fucking shit, right? It's one of the most beautiful movies ever made.
Yeah, and then it's been stuck on Blu-ray for 15 years at this point. So it's like, come on, let's get it on 4K.
That's a fucking crime. How dare they? You're like, this is fucking 2022, god damn it. How long must we wait? We gotta wait forever. That's the answer.
All right, so
yeah, I'm just lining up your number 3. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'll kick it off here. My number 3 is the Sergio Leone movie For a Few Dollars More. His 1967 movie, the middle movie in the Man with No Name trilogy. I don't really remember the first time I saw this movie, but it was recently brought back to sort of the front of my mind when I got the new 4K release from Kino Lorber, which I talked about on this very podcast. And I guess I'll say I think this is Leone's best movie in my opinion, and better than Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I think a lot of people would probably say is sacrilege. But I think an apt comparison here is actually the Lord of the Rings movies, which which a lot of people would also say that The Return of the King is the best movie of those, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with them. I don't have a problem with anybody saying that for either one of these trilogies, but I think they're both kitchen sink type movies where the director tries to cram a lot of stuff into the third movie in the trilogy. And in the case of this one, in this trilogy, I think it's a lot less meandering than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and has a more cohesive plot, and it just flows better. It's a nice 2 hours and 10 minutes, and this, and it's probably it's the part one of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly too, in that you get introduced to Lee Van Cleef's character, who appears in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
So that is the same character. I never knew that.
Yeah, same guy. Yep, same character. So, and yeah, it's just, oh man. I mean, where do I start? One of the best final scenes in movie history, in my opinion. Literally one of the best sequences ever out of any movie. When, Lee Van Cleef.
Is that Klaus Kinski?
Yeah, that's Klaus Kinski. Yeah, who will show up again as we talk. But so yeah, Lee Van Cleef he gets dead to rights basically by the film's antagonist, El Indio, and Clint Eastwood's The Man with No Name shows up and basically decides that it's going to be a fair fight and gives Lee Van Cleef's character his gun belt back. And as the sort of Sergio Leone score is coming to a head, he just takes a squat and says, "And now we begin." And then the music revs up, and it's the whole sequence. Oh my god, seriously, one of the best sequences ever. And for that scene alone, this movie makes it on my top 5. But the rest of the movie is great too. I mean, there's the bank robbery in the middle of the movie. There's Klaus Kinski, as you said earlier. And yeah, it's incredible. And I think it's Sergio Leone's best because it's just his most coherent movie, in my opinion, and it flows the best. And it continues on in the next movie. And so, I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to say about it?
Well, I've never seen it. I have to confess.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
shit.
I've seen a lot of other Leone movies, but I always convinced myself, oh no, the other two aren't worth my time. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was the one that they were building up to. I don't know why I could like because after you talked about the release that you reviewed earlier, that's when I realized I was probably wrong about that assumption because this sounds like this is his Dark Knight. Is in terms of like if we're talking like Nolan Batman movies, like this is
that is a good comparison.
Okay.
Because it's I think A Fistful of Dollars is good, but it's not on the level of these two, of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or For a Few Dollars More. It's kind of him still getting his footing. So I mean, I guess I would say still watch it, but I guess if I had to say, and it doesn't tie to the other two, for A Fistful of Dollars, other than Clint Eastwood's character showing up in that movie also, it's not a continuation of the story in this one or Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of where I would leave it.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess now if I win the summer movie wager, I guess I know what I'm gonna make you watch.
Exactly, because I would love to watch this. Now that I've heard so much about it, I really love Once Upon a Time in the West, and what I appreciated about it was that it was separate from anything else. But now that I know that there's a reason why his character, Lee Van Cleef's character, is presented the way he is in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's like because he is presented as though we should know him, and I always thought that was weird, and now I know why. I have to see it. I mean, I've seen so many random westerns, but I haven't seen that.
Sergio Leone would be a very good. This is a little bit of inside baseball about our podcast, but that would be a good pick for one of our director's series because he hasn't done that many movies, and I think that there are some of his movies that you could kind of skip or that you could kind of cordon off in its own section and then just do like some of them. But
absolutely, because he did make some like really I don't know. Once Upon a Time in America is a weird fucking movie.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to reconcile it with all the other things he's made, but we could definitely maybe throw in like Duck You Sucka or something like that. Mm-hmm. Didn't he do that? I think that was him.
He did.
Yep. Okay. My third pick. This is a movie that is near and dear to my heart, and I first saw it because of Netflix. But this is one of those movies that my parents gave me because they were kind of hip, when they were living in Eugene, Oregon, and were growing weed and going to law school. They were watching like Australian new wave movies and crap like that, and we got Netflix. Like that's where they had a surprising amount of like foreign films that they were into, and one of them was a little movie called Babette's Feast, and I'm not sure if it's gonna pop up for me. There it is. Yeah, and for those who don't know, like this is also based on a short story, but it's about this weird little community in the coast of Norway. Their religious community. They're all old and dying out. Their patriarch is gone, and and there's really like nothing keeping this place going. And then out of this lady from France shows up named Babette, and she's like, "Hey, I need a place to stay. Can I work for you?" And they're like, "Okay, you can cook for us, but because of our religion, it has to be gruel. Like it can't taste good. They don't believe in pleasure. They're like one of those wacko Christians." And over time, she starts like putting like a little bit of spice in it, and people start enjoying it, but they don't want to admit it. And the whole movie just it takes its time getting there, but eventually it builds to, because they give you some backstory on the two sisters who run it, what their past life was, and like the choices in life that they had to make, the sacrifices they made, to take care of their father and be true to his teachings. And then Babette wins the lottery. She gets 10,000 francs, and she's like, okay, I'm going to, what I want to do is I want to cook you guys a meal. And they're like, oh, okay. So there's lots of consternation, but they don't want to offend her. So all of these people in this religious community agree to eat the food but not enjoy it. And they sit down for this magnificent feast that, you wish that you could enjoy yourself. Because like this is the most sumptuous food movie of all time. It never has food looked this good. You want to grab a quail head and suck the brains out of it like you see one of the characters do. Because but it's just a beautiful human story. It moves me every time I see it. I tear up just thinking about this movie. Like I'm tearing up right now. It's like my mom had a stroke, back in 2013, 2014, and I went to see her at the nursing home she was rehabbing at, and she was just flipping channels, bored, and she was like, here, you find something. And I wound up on Turner Classic Movies, and they were showing Babette's Feast uncut without commercials. I don't know, like I thought, like, because I think sometimes there are ads on Turner Classic. I think maybe I'm wrong about that, but this was unabridged, and I hadn't gotten to see it since I was a kid. But from that moment on, I was like, no, all the film nerd in me had grown up a little bit, and I just realized this movie is so good because it's just simple, and the director's name, I just want to shout him out here.
Gabriel Axel is what I saw.
Gabriel Axel, and I haven't seen anything else he's done, but this movie means so much to me, and it's lighter fare. You can recommend this to your grandmother. In fact, you probably should if she's still alive. And if she's of a certain age. I don't know. It's just a sweet little movie because it's all about the magic of food and what the generosity of a meal can be, and you see like all these characters transform, like against their will, just because they're transported out of themselves and are finally in communion together in a way that their religion was not allowing them to. You know what I mean? Because their dogma and their doctrine was just closing them off from everything, and they finally open themselves up because this woman just gives everything she has so they can have a beautiful night, basically. And just great performances, beautiful cinematography. It's a magical little movie.
Yeah, this is I think the only one. This is my movie of shame on your list. I haven't seen this one, and
if I win the movie wager, this is the one I'm going to make you watch.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah. So, but yeah, it sounds interesting, and I saw. I mean, obviously, it's highly regarded because I did see like the trailer that you showed said that it was nominated for the Academy Award the year it came out.
It won, in fact.
Oh, it won. Okay.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a reason why my parents saw it, because because I'm pretty sure what's his name, Roger Ebert gave it a good review. And that was the early days of sneak previews and things like that. So I think they watched public broadcasting back then. So I think they would have been clued into it. And it was really important to them that we watch it. So it was one of theirs in the 3 DVDs we got sent. Back in the day on Netflix. Like I forget what I think it was Full Metal Jacket. I requested Full Metal Jacket. They got Babette's Feast, and Monica got Gilmore Girls, and that's what life used to be like, kids. Yeah. And now we're moving on to number 2 on your list, which I am excited to hear about because this is also a movie of shame for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to admit I haven't seen this. It's legendary. I know I should. I know I'd probably like it. But what can you tell us all about? How do you even say the title? Say it for me, will you?
Yeah. Aguirre, Wrath of God.
There we go.
So, this is the 1972 movie from Werner Herzog. My first encounter with this movie was actually from one of my college friends. His name was Alex. He was a guy that I met actually at the film club at MSUM in Moorhead, Minnesota, and he really was one of my big like benefactors as far as like opening my eyes to more interesting filmmaking.
Okay.
And he borrowed me his DVD of this, and like he did a lot of movies, and he was a huge Herzog fan. He also borrowed me Fitzcarraldo.
Okay.
And so yeah, he kind of turned me into a Herzog fan, and especially his early films. Herzog's early films are so incredible, and he's just a filmmaker I have a lot of passion for. And if anybody doesn't know, this is about a Spanish expedition to find El Dorado, and it stars Klaus Kinski, Herzog's longtime collaborator. And the thing about Kinski and Herzog is they like bring out the best and the worst in each other. In that
their relationship sounds volatile.
Yeah, they fucking hated each other, but they like brought like the best art out of each other, where they would like egg each other on and just be like, you know, like, this fucking sucks, like, do better. And like Herzog would like point guns at Klaus Kinski and stuff, like loaded guns, and like it was crazy. And that's the thing about Herzog is, especially his earlier films, he poured his entire being into every movie that he made, to his detriment, like his health and his like mental health. He's very much like Coppola in that way, where Coppola like almost killed himself making his early films.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's just he's a master of his type of filmmaking, which is a very like documentary style, just kind of showing things as they happened, and at the same time, you know, being very good at capturing spectacle, because his movies weren't very large budgeted, but he still like found ways to just kind
how
of
did
like,
he do the shit he did? Yeah,
like in Fitzcarraldo, like the bringing the ship over the mountain, and it's just like nuts, all of like the practical stuff that he did in like the middle of the jungle in the 70s. And
the madman, the fucking madman. God.
But yeah, that's my number 2. And
not just a documentarian, because and he's not just that cuddly grandpa who's in The Mandalorian. Because I have a very different relationship with Herzog, just because they aren't really accessible. Like I'm realizing now why I haven't seen like some of these movies. They aren't on streaming, and I haven't committed myself to spending the money to get them.
Yeah, it used to be worse too. Like that. His movies used to be even harder to get. I mean, because obviously we didn't have streaming, and then just to get them on DVD, because that was another one of those movies that my friend who brought it to me, you know, I think I probably had his DVD for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and it seemed like he would ask me every day, like, hey, you still have my movie? Hey, you still have my movie? Because it was like an $80 DVD. Like, it was
just like, because I think Memories of Murder was another one that he also...
That was the other one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, God, the poor guy. But God bless him, because he is kind of like the Sherpa of all Sherpas. You know, he brought all of us where we are today, one way or another. Now that I need to see these movies, man. Like, I think that's just what I'm realizing, is how deficient I really am, because I've seen all of his documentaries. You know what I mean? And I've even seen, you know, Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. I think I actually need to do the right thing here and just watch all the early Herzog and just be a completionist about it, because I am not impressed with myself, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, they're all great, and the Enigma of Caspar Hauser, that's another really great one. And yeah, it's just like one of those things. I mean, I would do it if I were you, and I would savor it, because it's one of those, you know, all his early movies are movies where, you know, it's one of those things where you wish you could delete them from your memory so you can watch them for the first time again.
Absolutely, yeah. Because like there is something special about that virgin ground in your own brain, in your psychosphere. Because once like these movies are a lot of these are like, especially a Herzog movie. Once it hits your brain pan, you're done. You know, like your worldview is irrevocably altered, and that's just the way it goes. My number 2 is a little movie called The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, which comes to us by way of British filmmaker Peter Greenaway. Not Greenway, Greenaway. Get it right. I've gotten it wrong many times. But he's a fucking weird filmmaker to start with. And the premise of this movie, is just that it's just a bunch of different nights of the week showing dinner service in a restaurant that is owned by a mobster, a British mobster, played by Michael Gambon, whose wife is played by, Dame Helen Mirren in her most scintillating performance since Caligula. And Jean-Paul Gaultier does the costumes. I need to I need another window so I can pull up the information on who did the score, because that's the real fucking like highlight of this fucking movie, along with all the other highlights. But it's the score to this film is in particular a track called Memorial by Michael Nyman, the composer Michael Nyman. And he, that just adds this other dimension to the movie, because there's just this crazy aggressive music over top this like really deliberate and formalist visual presentation, and the cast are just playing it like they're on a giant, really, really long stage, and the camera will slide from back of house, through a wall, in front, through the dining room, through another wall into the bathrooms, and it'll just glide throughout it, and people will just move around and do stuff. And it's to call this a formalist masterpiece doesn't quite do it justice. Like, I wish I could make a movie like this. Like, I dream of like being able to have the eye that this guy has, and he's a hard filmmaker to get into. Peter Greenaway. This is his most accessible movie. And that's not even an exaggeration. It is. And it's just about this affair going on underneath the nose of this gangster, and the consequences of it. And it just explores all these different levels of human depravity and, and the human nature. And it's also this very, I guess I would say, subtle critique of the Thatcher government of the UK in the 80s. But this movie was rated NC-17. It was basically banned in the UK for a while. And it was a kind of a big deal when it was released, overseas, and it was viewable. But it has a gangbuster of an ending. It's not for the faint of heart. Don't see it with a full stomach, and you won't have an appetite, by the ending. Have you seen this movie?
Yeah. A while back, like probably my early 20s, and yeah, I mean, I guess the way that I would describe, the word I would use, I guess, is like sumptuous. Yes. Like just the look of this film, and it actually kind of reminds me of, I mean, obviously not in anything but look, but just the look of the movie and the colors and, how light casts on everything. It reminds me of like a Dario Argento movie. Yeah, no,
it definitely does have that giallo, sort of effect to it. Because throughout the movie, like it almost feels like a horror movie, like you in a weird way. Like there's just a great sense of danger throughout, especially when the affair is in action and everyone is like all the staff are like helping them cover it up. You're just like, when is the shoe gonna drop? When is everything gonna go wrong? And oh boy, does it go wrong! And there's lots of neat little guest turns from like a Ciarán Hinds. Tim Roth shows up, and Michael Gambon just kills it. He's just so repugnant and evil, but yeah, he's the ultimate geezer gangster, and he's almost an archetype of that British gangster character. And I forget the actor who plays, like, I forget the names, but the chef is also really good. The lover, he's whatever. He's just there to look good naked with, Helen Mirren. But she kills it. She is so good in this movie, in my opinion. And whenever, like, there was a time when it was really hip to like Helen Mirren, and everyone would be like, "Oh, I love the Queen. Oh, Calendar Girls." I'd just be like, "Bitch, you should fucking watch this. If you really want to see Helen Mirren, you really want some granny goodness, this is the place to go." Because that is the thing about her career. She was a sex pot. Like, she started her career taking her clothes off, and she's just kind of fearless in that way in this era of her career. And I just appreciate it, for what it is. And it's just, it's not accessible, but it was accessible to me, and it has stuck to me. Like, I tried watching it with my brother-in-law Paul one time, and he made it like to like the 20-minute mark, and he was just like, "This is way too much." And I was like, I get it. Yeah, because it's color, it's sound, it's music, it's acting, it's drama, it's the whole package. It's all the forms of film and art packed into each other. There's a weird choir boy who just shows up to sing randomly throughout the movie. I don't know. I don't know what purpose it serves, but it's there. And now we're getting to the nitty gritty. This is the number one territory. And your number one makes complete fucking sense. I'll just say that. Like,
yeah, I tipped my hand a little bit last week when we were talking. I don't think I made it too obvious of how much I like this movie, but yeah, my number one is the 2007 movie from oh wow, why did I just blank on his name?
God, I don't have it. It's Andrew Dominique, right?
Yeah, Andrew Dominique. Yeah. Jeez, I don't know why I just blanked on that, but yeah, Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. And this movie has long been my favorite movie of all time. Nothing seems to be able to kick it off my list. And I remember I saw this movie in theaters in 2007, and there was two other old men in the theater with me. I still remember, and one of them fell asleep. I do remember that because I could hear snoring, but still didn't ruin the movie for me. And this movie is like one of the few times in my life where I have watched something and then I like went out to my car and just had to like sit there for a bit before I could drive, because I was just like, thinking about what I just saw. And the only other time that's ever like happened to me was actually when I watched the finale of 6 Feet Under for the first time while I was at work.
Yeah.
And then my shift ended, and I just sat in my car like incredibly sad and like really, really like just out of it. But yeah, this was for completely other reasons. I was just so blown away that, something like this could exist, because essentially what this is, what if a Western, but, a biographical prestige movie about paranoia. And it's like, I don't know, it's just, there are so many aspects of this movie that are the best thing that a person is ever going to do in their life, where I think this is Andrew Dominique's best movie. This is the best movie that Roger Deakins has ever photographed. This is the best score that Nick Cave has ever done. And this is the best performance that Brad Pitt is ever going to give in his life. And it's the best thing ever from so many people. And you add to that like a stellar cast or stellar supporting cast of, like Casey Affleck and Sam Rockwell and Sam Shepard and who else is in there? Mary Louise Parker's in there. Pat Healy, Ted Levine, James fucking Carville. Like, it's crazy.
I forget that James Carville is in this.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's just this like 2 hour and 45-minute epic that Andrew Dominique never should have gotten the money for. This movie was like $100 million.
Dude, there exists like a 6-hour cut of this movie that has never been seen, and and will never be seen.
Yeah, and I was gonna mention that too, because it's almost as if in its sort of like, it's like post 2007 life, this movie has taken on a mythic quality that sort of mirrors its central figure, where so many people regard it very highly, but everybody involved with it for some reason refuses to like do anything with it, even though there is both a 6-hour cut out there somewhere and then like a 4-hour cut that screened one time at the Venice Film Festival when the movie premiered. And it's like, it's so weird because everybody involved with this movie, like every time it gets brought up in like interviews, they're just like, yeah, you know, that's out there somewhere, and you know, nothing's ever going to get done with it, and WB refuses to do anything with it. And I know for a while there was a petition going around for like Criterion to pick it up.
Dude,
and
yeah.
it got like enough signatures or whatever that Criterion actually had to just come out and say like, basically, essentially, we're not interested in putting this movie in the Criterion collection.
Too mainstream.
And, yeah. So yeah, I guess. And I mean, it sucks though, because, and I mean, this movie still hasn't gotten a 4K release. And so, I mean, they've kind of just, it's fallen by the wayside, and it sucks.
It's a crime.
It's so, yeah.
No, like this is one of the holy of holies. Like
Mm-hmm.
if a movie could be like a wonder of the world, this is one of them. I totally appreciate you putting it up there, and it is not, you know, like the fact that it isn't anywhere in my discussion. It's not against it whatsoever. You know, like everything you said about this movie is absolutely true. You know, it is what, like, I was seeing it when I was like 16, 17 years old. Like, I didn't get it. You know, like not enough action. You know, like I really wasn't in tune with it. But yeah, like watching it, I've watched it like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, like that's the most recent time. But yeah, everything that it was actually about actually hit me. I don't know if I just like was like orally dyslexic as a youth, but I would like listen to a character talk in a movie, and I wouldn't always process it. It would just go out my ear. I don't know what was wrong with me, but like this is one of those movies where you got to pay attention, and you got to watch the little ticks that the actors give their characters. You know, it's there's a lot of great silence, and you know, from a lot of these, you know, actors in this movie where they're just, the energies are just working off of each other within a scene. Mm-hmm. Like it's a very subtle movie for as, you know, bombastic as like some of the set pieces can be visually. You know, it's a very, like, its quiet moments are its most powerful.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I like that you brought up like the ticks that the actors give, because I mean, just to call out a specific scene, the scene where, you know, Robert Ford actually does kill Jesse James, it's like the amount of tension in that scene, and you know, Casey Affleck's performance where he's just sitting there like in a rocking chair, like, you know, basically he's like crying and he can't stop shaking, and yeah, it's so great. And yeah, like I said, this has long been my favorite movie, and I don't know if anything will ever kick it off my number one. I don't know if that could happen, but I guess it remains to be seen.
Yeah, because the quality of that movie is such that I really can't see it happening for you. It would take Blonde being the best fucking thing you've ever seen. You know, because like it is, because I don't know, I also really like Killing Them Softly, but it is less substantial of a movie than, you know, than his first one. Like you are, no, that's not his first one, than this one. Yeah, because I've always forget about, what's the Australian one?
Chopper.
I always forget about Chopper. Now, with my number one pick, this filmmaker, it's not hard to distinguish one, you know, or even remember what's in his filmography, because it's so, you know, freaking small. And, you know, I've talked about him a little bit before, because I think we had a question about, you know, like what filmmaker did we feel like wasn't, you know, had fallen off the face of the earth. And in some ways, I don't even care that this guy has, you know, that his personal choices have, you know, kind of made him persona non grata, you know, in the filmmaking community, because I have this movie. I'm talking about Upstream Color, literally made by Shane Carruth, wearing every hat from, you know, writing all the way down to like sound mixing, and the soundtrack itself, which is really good because he is weirdly a good composer, you know, at least for what he does. but this movie's impossible to explain, like in a coherent way. But if there's any way to explain it, there's a weird flower that, has qualities to it that, are hypnotic, or like it introduces like a parasite into your system that makes you like easily suggestible to suggestion. And there's a guy who is there's a bunch of disparate people who aren't aware of what the other is doing, but they're all part of the life cycle of this parasite. This movie does not articulate this in any textual way. I hope you understand this. Like, this is a movie that I know so well because I've seen it so many times. I wanted to understand it without having some think piece write it all down for me. This was, and I think that's why it is where it is for me, because I have absorbed so much of it. And it is such a powerful experience from beginning to end, and it has such a weird, unique, premise and a way of articulating its story, and it does so much with so little. Because this dude's whole point is that Hollywood doesn't get me, never will get me. I'll just do it myself, Dad. And he does it, and he does it in a way that only he could do. You can't imagine this movie in anyone else's hands. Like, no one could take a script of his and make something with it, but him. And that's why it's so special to me, because it's just this weird, unique thing. And like, even he will never make something again because he has his own problems, that, really aren't, worth getting into. But the movie itself will live on, for me, forever until I run into something better, or at least something that hasn't had more of an impression on me and what its message was about. And just, it had so many bizarre, sequences and visuals, and it, went out of its way to make sure that I knew nothing, and I had to use my brain, maybe a little too much. And I understand that this movie's not for everybody, but it was the perfect movie for me at the time it came out, and it still is. And I haven't seen this thing in, maybe 6 years, but I still know that this is my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I love Shane Carruth. I guess I don't like Primer quite as much, but I loved Upstream Color. And if I recall, we watched this movie together for the first time, didn't we?
Yeah.
At your apartment in
I rented
South
it
Fargo.
on iTunes at Wolf Creek.
Yeah.
And I remember, there's some spices flowing around the room a little bit, but that didn't detract from it, and in fact, it just made me go, time to watch this sober, and I believe I did the next time I watched it. But yeah, it was just, and that's kind of what made it special. It's like, this was a film premiere that we just had at home. So, there was no way that even the Fargo Theater was going to touch this movie. Even though I wish it would have. I wish it would have. I wish I had a theatrical experience with more of my favorite movies. That's why, for a second there, I almost put, I'll get to that, but I almost valued the theatrical experience that I've actually had with some movies. I almost thought, weighted them higher for that. But, at the same time, I kind of just had to be true to the art. What's been more impactful? This is a lot more impactful than Alien, as much as I love Alien. Or Babe. Babe is a fucking awesome movie, and it's one of my earliest theater memories. But yeah, it's Babe. It took a lot of more effort from a single individual to make Upstream Color happen, and my cinema experiences will always be judged by what this one dude and a lot of willing participants were able to go along the ride with him. I do plan on reading the script for The Modern Ocean. That's leaking around. That's online, because he released a sizzle reel for it to try and drum up some interest, because he's trying to get his career going again. We'll see if he has any success. But his other unreleased project, Atopiary, really fucking cool. But yeah, it's also a movie that I can't even imagine how he would make it. Because when he writes screenplays, he has a header at the top, and he makes it clear that he doesn't adhere to the industry standard of a page of script is a minute of screen time. you could have like 10 minutes of screen time in like 4 paragraphs based on how he writes screenplays. Or, like he could just have a page filled with like 20 scenes that are all like a single line of description. Like that's just how detailed and thought out everything is. The camera is like oriented within the screenplay. So you can't even imagine it for yourself. You have to try and compare it to the other movies he's made. So if we're going to experience anything more from Shane Carruth, it's by reading his screenplays, watching Upstream Color, because it would look a lot more like that than Primer. Primer was the film school, basically, that he put himself through. And it's fascinating because he did it with even less than, that he made, Upstream Color with. But yeah, there's a lot less to take away from Primer. This was such a huge step up. And you could, because it took 13 years for Upstream Color to come out versus Primer. Wasn't it something like that? I think
so. Yeah. It was a long time.
Long ass time. But he's an interesting, character. He had people like Soderbergh really invested into him, even David Fincher. And because in the sizzle reel for A Topiary that he also released recently, he says produced by David Fincher and Steven Soderbergh.
Oh yeah,
because they were chummy once upon a time. But just if you could, I have no fucking clue how anyone would fucking see this movie anymore without sailing the 7 seas. I think maybe you can go on his website and buy it. I don't know. I haven't. It's nowhere on streaming. For a little bit there, it was on Netflix, but I think maybe it's probably on VOD. I just haven't looked for it.
Okay. Yeah, let me check real quick because this is a movie I definitely need to revisit. But it looks like you can rent it in some places. This is one I need to revisit for sure because it's been a long time since I've seen it, and I do hope that he makes his way back to filmmaking. I find it's weird how Shane Carruth's view of filmmaking is more like a job rather than his passion, where he seems passionate about a lot of different things that include filmmaking, but it's not necessarily like his one true love, which is very strange because I just hope he makes his way back to making movies.
He's definitely autistic. That's what I think, because no guy sits there and is like, okay, I kind of want to make a movie, but my excuse for making the movie is so I can teach myself 3D animation and compositing, and then I'll spend 10 years trying to do that and then give up on it and do something completely fucking different, which is what Upstream Color is. Because A Topiary was supposed to be his movie, and that was going to be his big entry of his genius. But all the money people were just like, what? And then some of that footage lives on in Upstream Color very famously. And in that sizzle reel he released, there's even more of it. So, if anyone's interested in Shane Carruth, there's actually a lot more content out there now than there was, previously, because he's trying so desperately to get back out there. But he also has an acting, Tales from the Loop. He appears in that show. Have you ever seen that Amazon series?
Yeah, I have. Weird. Yeah. I guess I didn't recognize him, but
I think he plays an older version of a character, I think.
Okay.
So he maybe is later in that show. And he, of course, when he and Amy Seimetz were together, he was deeply involved behind the scenes on the what's that show called? It's a Soderbergh show. It's based on that Call Girl movie that he made with that porn star.
Oh, Girlfriend Experience?
The Girlfriend Experience, yes. Because Amy Seimetz, she show ran that or produced it. And because now the lead of that show is Dominic West's daughter from The Affair.
Okay.
Because now both Amy Seimetz and Carruth have nothing to do with it now. But for a little bit, he was getting some checks thrown his way by Soderbergh during the lean times. But that's it. Yeah, that's us. As far as our top 5s, mine were I Saw the Devil, Children of Men, Babette's Feast, Number 2 was The Cook, The Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, and lastly here with Upstream Color. Run down yours quick, Matt, but then we'll move on to our honorable mentions.
Yeah, sure. One sec. I just need to. Sorry, I closed my doc. All right, so mine were In the Company of Men, Children of Men, For a Few Dollars More, Aguirre, The Wrath of God, and The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
All really manly movies, I have to say. Like, there could not be more testosterone, like in any 5 films than in those ones. I grew up with 3 older sisters, and I'm surrounded by estrogen, so that's why Babette's Feast is there.
Yeah.
But we did have some movies that didn't make the list. We had some that we had to bump, like myself literally, at the 11th hour. But just to kind of run through those really quickly, I guess I think I have yours queued up first. What were the ones that from you that didn't quite make the cut?
Yeah, so my 5 that just missed the list are Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Sorcerer, The Shining, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and 12 Angry Men. Okay. And I guess just to give a little bit of flavor on these, Willy Wonka is just kind of a remnant of my childhood. I think it's one of the best kids movies out there that still has something for a lot of adults. Sorcerer is probably the most recent movie that are on either one of these lists, because I've recently been on a Friedkin kick, and I watched this movie for the first time probably only about a year ago and love it.
Okay.
The Shining's obviously old classic Kubrick. I'm a really big fan of Stephen King too, like his books. So that's probably part of the reason why that's.
It does help, and that The Shining is. It almost was on my honorable mentions list too. It almost was even in my top 5, but I talked myself out of it.
And then Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring. I chose this one particularly because I like all the Lord of the Rings movies. I think Fellowship of the Ring is the best though, because it's the most. I don't know. There's something. What's the word? There's something enterprising about it. Like very, very. It's a smaller movie than either The Two Towers or Return of the King. I think
as far as runtime, you mean?
No, I just mean like in general.
Okay.
Like I think in The Two Towers, and then especially Return of the King, Peter Jackson is on the very, very beginning of that trajectory where he gets a little too obsessed with like CGI and like big like spectacle and like technology and stuff like that. It's kind of the trajectory that he started on that led him to make the shitty Hobbit movies.
And it's why those movies are so shitty too.
Yeah. So it's like I love Return of the King. It's an awesome movie, and I totally think that it should have won all the awards it did. But you can see the beginnings of the Hobbit version of Peter Jackson in Return of the King. And, but I love Fellowship of the Ring because there's something smaller about that movie as opposed to Two Towers and Return of the King. I do think they get worse as they go on, actually, but it's a very, very small decline. It's like they're still great. They're still all great. And then of course 12 Angry Men, classic
fucking pick right there.
Yeah.
Solid fucking pick.
One of the best classic movies ever. Just like getting these like A-list actors for their time in a room and having them just like argue and just put on like tour de force performances is just, you can't go wrong, really.
And God, who directed that again? Was that what's his fucking name? Sidney Lumet, right?
Yes. Lumet,
yeah,
yep.
And that's that is the definitive version too of that play, of that movie. I'll just briefly touch on Lord of the Rings just to echo what you're saying and like kind of pin down that whole problem a little bit. This first movie works so good because, enterprise, they were pulling every trick that they had. Forced perspective, miniatures, bigatures. They had people literally fucking hammering, like chainmail out until they had no fingertips. Like it's legendary, like the effort that went into the whole production on Lord of the Rings, but it is most evident in the Fellowship of the Ring because it actually feels real. The world, like Middle Earth, feels lived in. You can smell it, you can see it, and once it shows up in the Two Towers, it gets noticeably more present in the Return of the King on recent watches, and it's the whole problem with the Hobbit movies, and it's the creeping uncanny valley. The audience is sitting there and they're thinking, I am looking at CG, I am seeing CG, this looks so terrible, this looks so fake, instead of holy cow, that looks so real. Or like the Balrog might be in this TV show, but I doubt the Balrog is going to be as fucking cool as he is in the Fellowship of the Ring. Because I also put Fellowship, like I put all the Lord of the Rings on my list, but now I feel like I shouldn't have fucking done that. Because you're right, like you're so right about the problem, with Peter Jackson. But I just have to put all three of them on there just because of how important they were. It was I remember going to see Star Wars Episode 1 in '99, but I didn't understand why it was a big deal. But I cared about Lord of the Rings enough, like when I was 11, that like I had to fucking see this movie. I grew up with like the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings. Like we had that first, and the really terrible like Hobbit and Return of the King, like TV specials that they made. Did you ever see those?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh, dude, you gotta see them. Like it is the best version of the Hobbit. Like
okay.
like no joke. Like if they had just done how they did that cartoon, those movies would have been so much better. Just do it in a single volume, for crying out loud. But yeah, Lord of the Rings, all the way through. It's so important to me. The extended cuts are one thing, but those the original theatrical experiences. Great memory. Predator. I talked about why I love Predator so much last week. I've seen that movie probably like 100 times. Even though I might not have been staring at the screen, but I was listening to it and absorbing it. Eyes Wide Shut, is also on there. It's my favorite Kubrick movie. There's just so much like esoteric shit going on in it that I just get lost in thinking about what is it exploring and what is he trying to say about the real world? Why did they kill him? That's that's why I love it so much, because it's mysterious. I feel like we're not getting the real thing. What is the real Eyes Wide Shut? Dazed and Confused is just my favorite hangout movie. I could just throw that on anytime. And Fight Club and Memento were absolutely my favorite movies when I was like 15, 18, even like 20-something years old. But you grow up a little bit and you appreciate what you got out of those movies, but you kind of have to grow up a little bit, And I guess that putting them down, ranking them was my way of doing that, and not mentioning Drive once until right now is also how I was going to do that.
Yeah, Fight Club is in particular. That's like, it's the movie of like a generation. Like it captures the late '90s so well, and it's just like it's just a fun movie to pop on for that reason alone. Just to get like. To feel that sort of aesthetic again, like the late '90s,
and not just that. It's like it's ice cold, piercing satire, and it lands. I know that like a lot of people like watch this movie and get the wrong thing out of it, but to me, it's like whatever it's trying to say, it's nailing it, and it's just as relevant and prescient, today. And they just don't make it as mean spirited anymore, I would say. And have it be genuinely felt. It's like the people that it's like who it is targeting should feel bad about themselves, or at least reevaluate themselves a little bit after seeing this. And I feel like some people did, a lot of people did just hop on to identifying with Tyler Durden, which I guess means that times don't change, between bodies in that movie. Yeah, in Memento, this is cool. I've talked about why I love Memento so much. The the editing gimmick, the structural gimmick. And it's, yeah, just my first and my favorite Nolan movie. He's turned into a monstrosity of a filmmaker. You know, he's Spielberg on steroids, but I still prefer his quaint little masterpiece to all the really wonderful movies he's made since then. I like this one more. And I think, yeah, that kind of covers it for the meat of that. That was a fucking barn burn. I think this might be our longest episode ever. I'm finally looking at the runtime. So we will, jump right into what's releasing next week. It's Guy Slim Pickens again, kids. Yeah. We have Beast, which is a really weird movie from Idris Elba. It's like a survivalist action movie.
Yeah, he's like a killer lion in Africa. It's basically a horror movie with a lion. Cujo with a lion.
Cujo with a lion, basically. As we advance forward, we also have Spin Me Round on video on demand, which I forget the filmmaker's name, but this is
Jeff Bayona.
Jeff. Okay, Bayona. I always want to say Baroni or something like that. And this is Alison Brie.
Yes, and she actually, I didn't know this before, but they're actually married now, and she co-wrote this one with him. She didn't co-wrote his other movies; she just starred in them, but she co-wrote this one.
So you're telling me that girl made a movie called Horse Girl with this guy and was like, "This is my man."
Yeah, pretty much.
That's really funny. Yeah, okay. And then we got Legacy, which is the venomous reply to Winning Time. I can only assume that this was rushed into production because of that HBO series. Are you how long is this? Is this going to be like an 8 episode? Are they doing the full Laker history?
I think they're mostly, well, I guess, yeah, Kobe Bryant's on there. So yeah, they must be doing the entire history because I know it's like 8 episodes. It's a limited series, so but yeah, I mean, pretty much the only reason this was made was to get like the actual story that Winning Time put down and I don't know, I guess I'll see kind of how it does and maybe watch it, but I'm more interested in what we're going to talk about next as far as sports stuff goes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because we also got this, I didn't know that this was a thing coming out because I was a journalism student at Moorhead. I think you were still going to school there too at that time.
Yeah.
And we were just all sitting around, hungry, young, enterprising members of the Fourth Estate, and this story broke about Manti Te'o. And if you people at home, if you don't know this story, don't look it up. Just watch this. I'm sure this will give you a really thrilling ride, not knowing any details. You know what I mean?
Well, are you familiar with the Untold series?
Not like this is
Netflix?
Is this based on the website, the BuzzFeed Untold? Or is it,
I don't know.
Maybe not.
This is a Netflix series that it's essentially Netflix's version of 30 for 30.
Okay. So,
and there's a bunch of these on Netflix, and they're really, really good, like way better than they should be. And I would say they're on the quality level as the 30 for 30 documentaries. And one of the best ones is called Malice in the Palace. About that.
I have watched that. I have. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was really good.
Mm-hmm. They're all part of the same series, and this is the first episode of this forthcoming season, and they're gonna start releasing these now again, week to week, I believe. So
that's kind of rare that Netflix does a rollout for something. Mm-hmm. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess just to give people time to chew on it. I'm sure they do want to kind of give people the feeling that they're watching like a 30 for 30. That's probably part of the reason why too.
Yeah, because people are used to digesting those and having some time to sit on them. Mm-hmm. I'll have to check that out because it's a fucking crazy story. And then we have She-Hulk, Attorney at Law.
Yeah, this is.
It's hard for me to be excited. I'm paying to see this, but it's hard for me to be excited.
Same. I mean, I don't know. I don't like the feel that this show gives off by its trailers. I mean, it's basically a sitcom in the Marvel universe is how the show's giving me vibes of. And I don't know. It's just, and I know like plenty of people have complained about this, so I probably sound like a dick rider or a jump on the bandwagoner, but
Mhm.
it looks bad. Like she looks really bad.
Those special effects are terrible.
Yeah.
Like they are as bad as the Ang Lee Hulk, and that movie came out like in like 2000
20 years ago.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's absurd that it can look like this. Like, are they literally like? Are there no like? There's not enough artists apparently. They're all too busy working on all their other bullshit for Disney and Marvel to even get any decent quality. You don't even have to have her doing anything. Half the time she's just walking around in boy shorts, like going on dates with people. Based on what I can see.
Yeah, and it's just weird because there isn't. I mean, she was there. I can't remember what's the name of the woman who plays She-Hulk, the girl from Orphan Black.
Tatiana Maslany. Is that how
Yeah.
you say her name? I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, she was obviously there on set, and I'm sure she acted everything out with like a motion capture suit on. But this whatever we're seeing in front of us, it's not her at all. Like this is an entirely CG creation. They used her face as the character's face.
They had the dots on to capture her facial movement, but
yeah, and so I don't know. It's just weird in that way, where it's 100% a CG character, and it's very noticeable. And I don't know. I might give this one a one episode go, but I think this will probably be the first Marvel show I don't watch if I don't like the first episode.
If Marvel rolls out 2 complete stinkers in a row, like this isn't even more than 2. Like they've had quite a few series duds lately. Because just in terms of how they were received.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're all like bad to middling, other than WandaVision probably would be the only one. And some parts of Miss Marvel were better than others, but yeah, for the most part, bad to middling.
Yeah, and in terms of just viewership too, because I think they even admitted that Miss Marvel's like ratings were like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember reading that, which is too bad.
Yeah.
Which is too bad because they're trying their best. God bless them. But what this list doesn't include is the movie that we're going to be discussing next week, which you told me about when the show started, which is a movie called Apples.
Apples. Yep.
Yes, which is part of the Greek weird wave, which is the new hip film movement that we all need to pay attention to, and we are, because we're going to watch it tomorrow. It's not tomorrow, this week, and then we're going to talk about it next Saturday, because it's on video on demand. It's like $3-4. So if you want to watch along, go to your preferred VOD platform and you buckle up, because I think it's going to be strange. Because like, what did you say this movie was about?
Yeah, so it's about like there's a pandemic in the near future where everybody has amnesia, and the movie is about a like a psychiatric hospital that helps people who have nowhere to go get back up on their feet, essentially. People who can't remember anything about their previous lives, and they don't have any family that remembers anything about their previous lives, and they just have nowhere to go, basically. So
really cool high concept. And you have another parting question.
Yeah, so we're kind of keeping with the theme like we have been for our past couple parting questions. I want to know, what is a film that if someone told you it was their favorite would make you question their opinions at large?
I promise my answer will not be Mean Girls. That was just that was just an example.
Yeah, and I guess what I mean with this is, just to kind of pin it down a little further, don't I mean, this doesn't mean like an outright like bad movie. Like if somebody was like, my favorite movie is Troll 2, you know, that not I don't mean that.
Yeah.
I mean like if I mean a movie that some people regard as good that you're just like, oh god, you know, just like
It's like, okay, time to change the subject. Video games.
Yeah.
It's a little easier to talk about, maybe. But, oh, God, thank you for, sitting for almost 2 hours and 45 minutes here, Matt. But thank you for watching, if you made it all the way to the end here. I don't know if anyone actually watches all the way to the end. This is my test. If you actually watch all the way to the end here, comment. I want you to, like, show yourself. But thank you for joining us. This is from the Mezzanine. We, did just give you what we consider to be our, favorite films. These are not the best movies ever made. These are just our favorites. And if you haven't seen them, seek them out. If anything can be recommended by us, it is these 9 movies. Because we had one overlap, which means you really should see Children of Men first. Because that's the one that gets the double stamp. It gets the 2 thumbs together. The Wonder Twins powers activate. But have a good night, everybody.
See ya.